Glory be to Jesus Christ. What a bittersweet way to enter into the Easter season. Pope Francis is dead and the chair is empty. What is going to happen with the church going forward? Who's going to be our next pope? These are all the questions that we're asking. And there's so much emotion right now. It's been a very bittersweet day. Again, Bright Monday, such a beautiful and exciting day and such an amazing time of the year that we get to meditate on the mystery of the resurrection and looking at the world through the iconographic representation of the resurrection and the hope of the resurrection. And to have our pontiff, our spiritual leader of the Catholic Church, pass away on this very special day, I think that's meaningful. I think it's very prophetic. And I really pray to God that means that Pope Francis's soul will enter eternal rest. And I think we should all pray for that. I'm seeing some comments. I'm seeing so many comments from every angle. There's many people who are saying very, very good things about Pope Francis and, praying for him. And then there's many people who are also very confused and very upset publicly. And this channel doesn't focus on polemics. We don't do that. We focus on bridging the gap. We focus on positive reinforcement of apostolic Christians, trying to build unity, workable unity, something that we can work with to show Christ that we're actually serious in our faith and that we actually want to be one body. So much of the time I think division is caused because we just don't want unity. It's kind of like, all we need to do sometimes, I always think of the time that Christ healed the man with the withered hand. I believe that's what it was, where Christ just walks up to him and says, "Extend your hand." And the man just extends his hand. That's all he did. And Christ heals his hand. The man didn't even come to him. It was just such a special moment because it shows us how little we need to do in order for Christ to really work with us. And sometimes I think we don't want that unity, and I'm seeing some divisive comments and people saying that Pope Francis has been ambiguous and they're criticizing his pontificate, especially right after his death, and I just think it's really inappropriate. Wherever you fall on the topic, whether you like Pope Francis or you don't like Pope Francis, I think we can all agree it's an inappropriate time to be making these kind of comments, and I think it's also important turn it inwards. I really want to take this moment to say something, because originally I really didn't want to make a video on this topic because I don't want to be the billionth person to make a video about the death of Pope Francis, but my friend reminded me, Zach, you run Lungs of Faith, and people definitely are expecting you to say something about this. So I figured, okay, well, I'll say a little bit of something. I need to think about what I want to say, but I think what I want to touch on is how sometimes we accuse our leaders of divisiveness. We accuse them of being ambiguous, and we accuse them of being the source of division within the church or the source of controversy. But how often do we sit and actually analyze our own consciences and ask ourselves, how much are we contributing to division? How much are we contributing to the controversies in the world and the lack of love that there is in the world? How often are we doing that? And how often are we attempting to actually heal those wounds ourselves? How often are we trying to make positive claims about other people and trying to really heal using love? But there's so much damage in Christendom. There's so much division in Christendom. And how much of that is caused by our patriarchs? How much of that is caused by our bishops and our Pope? And how much of that is actually caused by us on the internet, us in real life, even within our own families? Maybe we have a mom or a dad or a brother or sister who are not part of the faith, and we treat them differently because they don't want to convert, or because they reject Christ, or because they're in a different place in their spiritual lives than us. And how often do we divide our own families and divide our own friends by our political beliefs or our religious beliefs, even within the Catholic Church, and especially within the Catholic Church, and especially within the Orthodox Church? We kind of go into these pockets of traditional Catholic, Novus Ordo Catholic, or Ortho Bro, and then modernist Orthodox, and we kind of form these sects within Christianity. But that's not what Christ wants from us. That's not what Christ wants from us. And I think what Christ wants from us is for us to realize that by criticizing other people, we don't get as far as by elevating them to a higher level and saying something good about them. You know, how often do we debase ourselves and say, hey, you know, I'm a sinner just as much as anybody else, and then maybe praise the other person? You know, I never see that, especially in the Catholic world and especially in the Orthodox world. I never see traditional Catholics say anything good about Novus Ordo Catholics. They'll never acknowledge anything that's positive, or even some of these more traditional Catholic channels that will talk about Pope Francis and how terrible he is, and they'll call out, like, he says one thing wrong or one thing that's slightly controversial, and they'll be right away on YouTube commenting about it, making videos about it, spreading that around, spreading rumors about Pope Francis, especially untrue ones. That happens a lot. And whenever he says something good or something orthodox, which actually is more frequently than you might think, they go silent. They go completely silent because it just doesn't get clicks. It doesn't get views. It doesn't get attention from people. And I think that's part of the problem, because division gets clicks. You know, polemics and criticism get clicks. They actually monetize YouTube. You know, they get you money in your pocket, and that's the very sad truth. I think Matt Fratt over at Pints with Aquinas recently did a video, on this like a couple weeks ago, where he talked about, if you want to get popular on YouTube, just call people out by name and criticize them, and you will get a viewership. And I think that is really true. And that's not to say that there isn't times and places to make respectful criticism or charitable criticism about someone else without slandering them or without gossiping or making things up. But a genuine criticism that's humble and open to being corrected, that's welcome, as long as it's done at the right time and at the appropriate time, preferably not right after somebody passes away. But there are appropriate times to criticize, you know, and it's not against Christian charity to offer criticism, especially in the public domain, like on the internet, where people are engaging in public forum discussions. But at the same time, we need to be aware that it can cause a tremendous amount of harm. You know, that can cause a lot of damage if done the wrong way. And this goes back. I also never see, Catholics. I rarely see Catholics say, like, praise the Orthodox for anything. It's especially the more traditional Catholics. It's generally just a lot of hatred, and also from the Orthodox side towards the Catholics. It's oftentimes just a lot of polemics and a lot of hatred. And oftentimes, you know, we need to ask ourselves: do we really understand the topics that we're debating on, like the energies and essences distinction, the papacy, like, and we're arguing about the historical elements. Like, yes, there's so many very well qualified people that can talk about these things, and excellent scholars that are smarter than all of us and who do this eloquently and beautifully and charitably, and we can maybe profit from listening to them. But how often do we kind of enter a domain where we don't belong? How often do we step into territory that it's not our priority, it's not our duty? You know, our duty as laymen of the church is to handle our business. Like, if you're a lay person and you live with your parents, for example, if you're a young man, you live with your parents, your duty is to honor and love your parents and to obey them. You know, as long as you're in your teenage years. Once you're an adult, it's different. You kind of get this autocephaly, right? You get this the relationship changes, but you still owe them respect, right? And if you're a husband, you primarily your duties are to take care of your wife and your children. But how often do we kind of neglect our duties that are right around us, the things that surround us, and we just jump straight into criticizing things that are way out of our reach, bishops, priests, the Pope, patriarchs, politicians, things that are way out of our reach and way out of our wheelhouse, frankly, and way out of our sphere of control. These are not things we can influence. If you don't like your local bishop, there's not much you can do about it as a layman. You don't have much besides maybe writing a complaint or emailing him personally and discussing it. There's not much else you can do. This is not your realm. It's not your sphere of influence. And I think social media and the internet makes it very easy to think that we have influence over things that we actually do not have influence over. And it's a very, very dangerous thing. And at the same time, I think it's important to use our platforms and to use our spheres of influence wherever you're at in life. Like if you're a father, you can influence your child. You can influence your wife. You can build your family. That's your sphere of influence. If you believe in something, if you believe in the values of Christ, that's where you can influence them. You can change your child. You can influence your family to grow in a certain beautiful way. And that's what you're supposed to do as a man, right? If you're a mother, this is by nurturing your children and giving them the type of love and attention that they deserve. This is your sphere of influence. And once you step outside of that, it's okay, but are your priorities taken care of? Are the people around you taken care of? Are your finances taken care of? Are the things at home taken care of? Are your relationships taken care of? These are the questions that really matter for us. And oftentimes I see us stepping outside of our spheres of influence and trying to speak on things and that are just frankly not within our wheelhouse. They're not within our sphere of influence. And we end up causing a lot of damage and division when we do that. And so I just kind of want to take this moment to mark this day as a day that we can maybe turn away from this attitude. We can maybe realize that how much have we contributed to the division within the church? How much have we been a part of the thing that we're criticizing? How much have we not taken the log out of our own eye before taking the speck out of our brother's? And I just think we will get much further by being more charitable and praising others where praise is due. Frankly, speaking positively about others, especially us apostolic Christians, especially us Catholics. We have so much in common that we need to fight against. We have to fight against the atheists. We have to fight against Protestantism, the Calvinists, the Lutherans, people who reject the sacraments. These are real differences. But when we look at us apostolic Christians, we all have Christ. We all have Christ. And yes, there's a lot of differences between us. I'm not here to deny that or to speculate on that or to offer my opinion on that. I'm not someone who can do that, but I believe that by finding what we have in common together, which is the sacraments, and that's not a small thing, right? If we share the sacraments, if we have that in common, that means that as a Catholic, when I talk to an Eastern Orthodox person, they have Christ within them. They received Christ. Maybe that day, maybe they went to liturgy and they have Christ in their body. And Christ tells us that our body is the tabernacle, right? It is the tabernacle. And we house God inside of it. Every time we receive the Eucharist at church, we leave the house and we have the Eucharist inside of us, inside of our human temple or tabernacle. And so do the Coptics, so do the Oriental, so do the Ethiopian Orthodox, so do the Roman Catholics, right? We all share that in common. We really have Christ present, the real sacrament, right? Present inside of us. We receive it. So when we treat each other, when we talk to each other, we should treat each other accordingly to that truth, right? And even when engaging with our Protestant brothers and sisters who do not have the sacraments, there's still a degree of respect that we must maintain. Especially when we offer criticism, we must do it in a loving way and present it in a, serious, firm but serious way, but also loving and charitable and showing the person that we really care. Like, why? We got to ask ourselves, why are we engaging in this criticism? Is it because we love them and we want to correct them, or is it because we have the hatred for them? We have some kind of anger inside of us that we just want to get out, right? And we need to analyze that before we say something. So, but that's why I'm so focused here on unity between apostolic Christians, because we really have Jesus present in us. And, our Pope has passed away. And what are we going to do? Are we going to go out there and criticize and use this time to just make very, very unsavory comments and point out the flaws and point out the things that we don't like and don't agree with that are frankly out of our wheelhouse? Like, we're talking about the Bishop of Rome here, right? We're talking about the See of Peter, the man who occupied the See of Peter. We're not talking about, your local parish priest, and even then you owe that local parish priest respect, right? He's authority. But we're talking about the See of Rome. We're talking about a patriarch. We're talking about the first See, okay? We need to have respect. We need to pray for our Pope. We need to have more faith. And I think this is a signifier. What the reaction I'm seeing to the death of Pope Francis, I've seen a lot of good, and I've seen a lot of faith, and I've seen a lot of love from even people who are not Christians, who have shown a lot of love and a lot of respect. And then I've also seen people who are Christians and people who are Catholics say some absolutely, just frankly disgusting things about our Pope. They've just said, frankly, very, very, very unsavory and unsettling things about our Pope. And it just shows you, that we need to be careful with how we treat our faith as Catholics and as Orthodox. Just because we're Catholic does not mean that we get to use that as some sort of status symbol, right? The church is a hospital for souls. It's a place that the sick come to. It's a place that, right, Christ said, I came not to call the righteous, but the sinners to repentance. So we have to remember that when we're in the church, we're the ones that are in need. We're acknowledging, because of our humility, the sins that we have, right? And that's why we're here. And we should be inviting other people with love into the church and with conviction and with testimony. But when other people see that Catholics themselves don't respect and talk negatively about the Pope and mock him and make just unsavory comments, especially right after his death, I mean, what does that tell your Protestant friend who is paying attention to that? What does that tell your fallen away mother or father who raised you Catholic but now no longer share the faith, and you're out here talking negative about the Pope? Why would that make them want to be a Catholic, right? Like, if all you say is negative things, why would someone want to be a part of that church? So I think we really have to be careful, and we have to kind of turn around and look back at ourselves. How much division are we causing, right? Not how much division is the Pope causing, not how much the bishop is causing, not how much. That's out of our control. We can pray. We can have faith that the church is ultimately protected by the Holy Spirit. But what we do have control over is ourselves, our lives, and how we carry ourselves as Christians. So I'll end the video here. This is pretty much all I wanted to say. And I wish you guys a tremendously happy Easter and an amazing Easter season. And I hope that it is filled with the hope and the glory of the resurrection of the body to come. And I hope that this is a moment that everybody can meditate on and continue to meditate on, not just through Easter season, but throughout the rest of your life. And just wear the white robe spiritually, wear the white robe. Realize that as a Christian, you have this amazing gift, and there's no reason to doubt. There's no reason to frown. There's no reason to cry. There's no reason, even when we see troubles within the church. These are things from the devil. These are not things from the Lord. The Lord told us to trust in him, and he will be with us until the end of time. And we need to really believe in that. And so I'll just end this video off by wishing you all the best, and may the glory of our risen Lord Jesus Christ be with you all forever. And please continue to pray for the soul and for the repose of our Pope Francis. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like it, subscribe to it, and let me know in the comments, what do you think the future of the church holds? I think this is going to be a very big topic. And yeah, let me know in the comments as well, what's your favorite and most memorable moment of Pope Francis? I think for me it had to be, and Pope Francis has a sense, he had a sense of humor, he had this very dry sense of humor. I think he knew what he was doing, and it always kind of made me giggle, in a very positive way. He was having this interview, I think it was on MSNBC, with this lady. This was recent, like in the last 6 months, and what happened was she asked, "Oh, are we going to have female deacons? Is there any hope for female deacons?" And Pope Francis is just in his chair. She says, "Pope Francis, are we ever going to see female deacons in the church?" And he just looks at her and he's like, "No." Just love it. I just love that. But I think that's who Pope Francis was really at heart, and I think in the past few years he's been really struggling with his illness, and we haven't got to see that bright side of Pope Francis as we did more early on in his pontificate. But that was my favorite Pope Francis moment, and I will have more videos coming out soon on who I think will be the next pope. That's going to be a video that's coming up soon, and then I'm also going to do another video on my top 5. I think I'm going to do like 3, 4, 5, maybe I'll do 10. My few favorite moments of Pope Francis throughout his pontificate and my favorite teachings from him. So stay tuned for that. And again, this is Lungs of Faith. Until next time, God bless you all.